Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be making a post-apocalyptic style pursuit car out of a Hot Wheels 8 crate. And I'm also going to be making a post-apocalyptic style diorama base for it to go on. The 8 crate here was first released in 2003 and it's based on a mid-50s Ford Ranch wagon. This is the 2019 version. So I'll start by drilling out that post at the front and then taking the car apart. And then I can use some poly stripper to strip the paint off of the body. Here it is after the paint has been removed. Now I'm going to use my rotary tool to carve a few dents into it. I'm going to put some sort of monster wheels on it, so I'm going to have to customize the base here. Just pop those wheels out first. So here it is with the body on it, and these are the wheels I'm going to use. And to raise the car up so that I can fit these big wheels in, I'm just going to glue in some axle tubes underneath the chassis there. And to strengthen those joins up, I'm just going to use some epoxy putty here and build it up around the axles where they're glued on. Here is the bumper in the interior section. Now I don't want all that chrome on it, so I'm going to use a little bit of hot water with some caustic soda in it. I'll just drop the chromed part in there for a few seconds. Can see all of the chrome's nearly gone off of it, so here it is after a rinse. It's just black plastic now, and I can start fabricating a bumper for it. So I'm going to start out with this piece of wire I've bent here. I've also put a blade on here, and here's a skull that I've made out of some modeling clay. I want to make some rough cast looking metal patches for my car, so I'm going to roll out some epoxy putty thin here and then cut out some squares with a craft knife. Next I press some rivet holes into them. And then once these are cured, which is only about 10 minutes with the stuff, I can glue them onto my car body here and there. I use a little bit of Tamiya putty to glue on some spikes that I've carved out of styrene. I like the Tamiya putty for this job because it looks like kind of rough welding at the bottom of the spikes. Next, I use my rotary tool to carve a few notches and dents into the metal patches. Just try and join some of them up with the dents on the car body. So here's the car body with all its dents and spikes and patches on it. Now I can move on to painting it. I'm going to start out with a coat of black primer, and then I'm going to do sort of a zenithal shading on it and hit it with some light grey and then white primer from the top down. Next, for a coat of rust, I start with some brown primer and then paint a light speckly coat of orange rust effect and dark red brown over the top. Now I'm going to use some salt chipping to give it a really worn out chipped paint job. So I paint it all with some water that's got a little bit of isopropyl alcohol in it to break the surface tension. And then I sprinkle some ground up rock salt all over the whole car and let it dry. And then I can paint over this. Now I had a look online and a lot of these cars were this mint green colour, so that's what I've chosen to do my one. You can see I've painted all over the salt there. Now I can take a brush and brush off all of the salt and the paint, and this will let the rust underneath show through. You can also just wash the salt off with some water once the paint's fully dried, which is actually what I ended up doing with this as well. And so here is our heavily chipped car. Now I'm going to detail all the patches and spikes and the details on the car with some dark silver paint. Next I applied some black wash around the panel lines and around the patches, etc. So here's some graffiti to go on the car. I've printed this out on some normal A4 paper, and I'm going to use some sandpaper just to sand off the back of the paper until it's as thin as I can get it. Basically you can see through it. Now I'm going to carefully cut out these crosses here. And then I can use some watered down PVA to apply them to the car. Next I apply some metallic weathering powders to all of the metal details. I'm using some silver powder and then some metallic blue and then a burnt metallic red. And once I was happy with all of this, I sealed it with some clear coat. So here is the base. I've given it a coat of black primer. You can see I've stuck a couple of spikes on the front there as well. I use some metallic weathering powders on this to bring out all of the details. And I also detail the seats there. And here is the chassis, which I've also painted black and then given the metallic weathering powder treatment. And finally, here is the windscreen. Now I don't want that back section there, I want that all to be open, so I'm going to cut that off and just use the front windscreen. And so here are all the customized parts of our 8 crate ready to go back together. But before we do that, we're going to crack on and get the diorama base made. I'm going to start out with a square of extruded foam here. And I'm just using my finger to pull out a load of big chunks out of a couple of sides of it. I don't want all of these chunks that I'm pulling out to be completely round like that, so I'm using a craft knife to help cut some squarer ones. Next, I'm going to use a pencil here to draw in some more details. I'm going to do some cracks, and I'm also going to do a couple of little potholes. There we go, that's looking pretty good. Next I paint a undercoat of dark grey acrylic on it, and then I lightly spray over the top of this with a lighter grey. A black wash is painted on all over it. It looks fairly uneven and streaky at the moment, but it evens out pretty quickly. As you can see, there's no more streakiness once it's dried. It's mostly gone into all of the cracks. Next, I apply a little bit of white dry brushing just to bring out the details a little bit more, especially around the edges, these cracked areas here. Now I'm going to make some ruins. I'm just starting again with some foam here that I've cut out. Put a door in this piece and a couple of windows there. And now I'm going to use my pencil here to mark some bricks into it. I start with the horizontal lines, using a ruler to do these. And then I can put in the vertical lines. Takes a little while, maybe 5 minutes or so, to do a brick wall like this. Next I'm going to cut in some broken away areas. And here we are, after a little bit of work. Here are our brick ruins, all cut out and carved into the foam. I've also saved a few little bits here to use as rubble later on. These were given a couple of coats of a reddy brown paint. Now I'm going to put some mortar into them. I'm using some joint compound here. Just going to rub it all over them. Make sure I get it into all of the lines between the bricks. And then I'm going to rub as much of it off as I can. Then I leave it to dry for a little while and then use a wet cloth to rub off some more. Now I want my ruins to be of an old post-apocalyptic distillery. There we go, it's been radon free since 2059. So I've cut it out and I'm just rubbing the paper thin again with some sandpaper like I did for the car graffiti. Doesn't matter if you rub a few little holes in it, it's actually going to look good because it'll just look like the paint is worn away a little bit. And again, I'm going to use some watered down PVA to apply it onto my brick wall there. So it'll go quite soft, and then you can use your brush to really push it into all of the little dents in the brick wall. And then I'm going to use my craft knife here to cut it away from where there's holes in the brick walls. Here is a little door that I've carved out of basswood, and I give this a dark brown stain and then a black wash. And here are my two walls. I've glued them onto the base with some hot glue, and I've also put the door in place there. Now I'm going to use these little pieces I saved earlier as some rubble. Just going to use some PVA glue to glue them on. I'm going to paint it on here in some patches a little bit wider than the rubble is going to be. Then I can put my rubble in place there. And next I sprinkle a little bit of dried dirt over it, and this is going to stick in those extra areas of glue. There we go. Now I'll just tip off the excess there. And then I wetted it all down with some scenic cement. When this was all dried, I could use some pastel I've ground up here to do some more weathering on the walls. And to finish it off, I'm just going to apply a few little patches of static grass. I start by applying some tacky glue where I want the grass to be. And then I can use my static grass applicator to apply the grass blend. So there is our post-apocalyptic style diorama base all finished and ready to show off our custom 8 crate. That means it's time for us to take a look at it, but just one more thing before we do. We'll take a moment to look back and be reminded of what we started with. Here is our 2019 8 crate with its silver paint job and black and red stripes. But let's bring on the apocalypse. And here it is, our custom post-apocalyptic style 8 crate pursuit car. It's had those big wheels added to it, give it plenty of ground clearance for racing through the post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's got that nice beefy front end on it now with the metal skull there. Also put a skull on the back where the diff would be. And I've even kept it as an 8 crate with that 8 crate graffiti on the sides there. I really enjoyed making this. I think it came out looking pretty cool. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now before I go, I'll say a big welcome to all of my new subscribers. Big thanks to everyone for the awesome comments on my videos. Extra special thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters who help to support the channel and help me keep making videos like this for you to watch through Patreon. If you'd like to help out as well, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description down below. Thanks heaps for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notifications. Give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.